Hello and welcome to the Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast, where we listen to people's fairy encounters. But take heed, we're not talking about winged Tinkerbells here. These are real fairies, real encounters that took people like you and I by surprise. Stay a while and hear their stories. My name is Jo Hickey Hall, and I'm a folklore researcher. This podcast is of course free, but to ensure it continues, it does require your support. If you can support the show and its continued research, there are a number of tiers to choose from at patreon.com/the Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast. We have a Discord private discussion group and a monthly live chat, plus regular personal updates behind the scenes. With your support, I hope to dedicate more time to this research and producing fortnightly episodes. Alternatively, you can really help support by subscribing, rating and sharing your favourite episodes with your friends. Thanks. Hello again, dear listener. I hope you're well. Thank you for your messages, which mean a lot to me. Please keep those coming. I value your thoughts on all of these, and it's good to know you're along with me on this journey of exploration. As always, please tweet me at _remain_curious. And contact me at scarletofthefae.com, where you'll find my show notes and some other articles from time to time. If you'd like to get more involved with discussions and receive personal updates about the show, then please do join Patreon, which supports this show immensely. Thank you so much to my curious crew for their ongoing support and help in shaping content. We're getting to know each other on Discord, which is great, and it's also nice to meet there monthly and discuss our own thoughts and experiences. I'm also releasing a bonus episode for patrons with unheard material from this episode. More about that at the end. This share is from a guest who describes their experience of connecting with nature in a beautiful, unspoilt location, and in doing so, observing an energy manifestation which they sensed was the genus loci, or spirit of that place. His second encounter was more chilling. Some might describe it as a demon, a ghost, or a spirit, but these types of categories share many similar features with fairy sightings, and researchers are coming to realise that if indeed there are lines between these manifestations, then those lines are very blurred. We'll talk more about this at the end. I hope you enjoy the episode. Time to renovate, transmute, time to renovate.
I have a profession as a storyteller, but I also give lectures in subjects around symbology, folklore, mythology.
That's great then. So you tell Dutch folk tales?
Yes. Not just folk tales, as well fairy tales and mythology. Not only Dutch, but I do know a lot about the Dutch folklore.
Oh, fabulous. I spoke to a Dutch lady for episode 7, Twilight Zone. Really interesting, and she had seen the Witte Wieven.
We know them, yes.
Yeah. She had some really pokey experiences right up in the top of the Netherlands.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a really great episode actually, and I loved speaking to her. She had seen some little people. She thought first of all they were children in the woods, giggling, and there were 3 of them dressed in green in strange outfits and hats.
It's very interesting to meet people who have had these kinds of experiences.
Absolutely. I really love chatting to people because I've had my own experiences which were all very different. And I just love hearing how it was for other people, because there's a kind of familiar thread through them. It's when you speak to other people and you think, oh yeah, that kind of reminds me of something that happened to me, or it's almost sometimes it's like a sense of you kind of hear in their voice, you understand what they've been through.
Yeah, you can relate because you've had similar experiences.
Yeah, This is it. So yeah. How about you? How did you get your interest into this area, and what were your own experiences?
Well, my interest in fairy mythology and folklore is, well, I guess in my the time when I was studying history in the University of Groningen. I read a lot about witchcraft and also read fantasy novels. It was all very tentative, very not deep yet. And when I was 30, I went to France, to a community, because I was very into the ecology movement. And I wanted to see what it would be like to be so self-sufficient and to help with projects which were into that experience. And that community was in a really green part of France, and next to the buildings of the community, you have maybe go 2 kilometers, you find a small rivulet, not a real river, but more a smaller river with cascades. Really not a big thing. It was a place where not many people came because it was so far from other villages away. You really had to so you could be there, out there on your own. And it was really a very green place, a little bit of an oasis, very quiet. And I'd like to come there. I had been in that community in the winter, and then I went back in April, the month of April. And in that month, I had an experience which I still cannot explain completely, because I was sitting there next to that small stream, which was maybe some 10-20 meters further on, was going into a it was frothing, it was gurgling, it was having that sounds. And there not much further, while I was sitting there, I had done a bit of meditation.
Right.
And from that state of quiet in myself, I saw in the middle of that stream a green vapor. And you could see through it. It was maybe 1.5 meters, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. And it moved in an unnatural way. And the form of that green vapor, I associate the form with a woman, like a nyx, a fairy of the rivers. But I did not really see a woman or something, but it had the contours. It was the contours were like that of a woman with a gown, with a dress, and she was, for me, it was a conscious thing which was there, moving on its own. And I was I was quite intently looking at that and wondering, do I really see this, or does this have anything to do with my meditation? But I didn't pinch myself, but I did with my eyes. I opened and closed them, and I was fully conscious. It was there. It didn't go away, and I couldn't explain it because, there might have been mists, but this was not mist. This was not, because the color wasn't right, and the way it was moving wasn't the natural way. So for me, it was something like I made a connection with maybe the spirit of the waters of the place, the spirit of the place. But that's, of course, a way of giving it a name afterwards. At that moment itself, it was just being in a very magical place where something odd happened.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's
That,
just
yeah.
the thing. I'd never seen it afterwards again, even though I have been there a couple of times more.
What sort of time of day did that happen?
That must have been, good question. I think late in the afternoon, maybe early in the afternoon. Well, in the afternoon, in any case.
Yeah, so
This
it was in
happened
daylight as well.
years
It was,
ago, so
yeah.
I did write things down, but not in detail. So it was in broad daylight in any case.
It was in broad daylight, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, and it sounds like a really beautiful experience. I mean, what did you feel at the time? Did you sort of feel any emotion?
It was densely forested, so it wasn't that there was sunshine coming up on it. It was shaded.
Yeah.
I was feeling very tranquil and wandering in awe, but also just feeling happy at ease, and even not like it was very natural and very well. Of course, I knew it was something special with my rational mind, but for the rest, I kept in that tranquility.
Yeah. Do you think the tranquility came from that experience, or were you already feeling tranquil? Did the being?
I think it was a bit of both.
Right. Yeah.
Because of being in silence as well as in my mind as well.
Yeah.
I was open for this kind of experience.
That's right. So you'd been there before, so you kind of had a bit of a relationship with that place already in some way.
Yeah, I have explored it, went up and down that stream, so I really enjoyed the place very much. But I've not been there for a long time. I've been there in the winter time for 2-3 months, then in April 1 month, and in the summer again 2 months. So I didn't have the opportunity to really grow roots there.
Yeah.
But it was a very intense time in my life.
Right.
It was, even though I was 29 going on 30, it was a threshold between maybe my youth and my adulthood. It was really for me a period in which I evolved personally, in which a lot of things happened in a very small amount of time.
So you recognize that yourself then, that it was maybe marking some kind of threshold, a kind of a liminal space within your own life between boyhood and manhood.
Yes, it was for me a step towards coming into my own and finally accepting to want to be self-sufficient in a way of how do you call it, to make my own money, to make my own life. And before that I was still dependent. I've been well, I won't say like a child, but more like I depended on other persons for a long time, maybe a bit too long. So then things changed.
Can you remember what sort of green? Was it a number of different greens, the vapor, or was it just a one sort of color green?
For me, it was one color, light green. It wasn't dark green. It was light. It was like it had a light coming from within.
That's lovely. Yeah.
It wasn't very difficult to put things like this into words, to choose it. It was more yellowish green than the other kind. It was it has luminescent quality.
Mm.
When I just 3 weeks ago, I had a splendid, almost lucid dream about the green man, the archetype of the green man, and when I awoke, it really it was something like it was a reality, especially because the colors were, the green was light at the same time. It was a color and it was a light, and maybe I can associate something like that as well with my experience then 20 years ago. It's both.
It's almost, it's that color green is like the spring kind of green, a freshness, isn't it?
Yes,
You know, and
yeah.
you see new buds growing, new growth. Noticing that even on my house plants as well as my
Yeah.
plants in the garden at the moment, that
It's
new
very
growth.
appropriate for
Yeah.
for the month of April.
Yes, absolutely. It really is. And the so the shape, was the shape already there when you perceived it, or was it vapor that formed into a shape?
Was moving, even though it stayed on the same spot, but it was swaying gently,
Mm.
and maybe even, well, not really, but like dancing, but not really like
Mhm.
swaying is a better word for it. Maybe
Mm.
it didn't change its form that much, but well, the movement was very plain to see.
So lovely. Thank
Yeah.
you. Could you remember how tall it was? Healing has helped me many times in my life when I'd reached a point where something needed to change. In 2005, I trained with Martin Brofman to learn the body mirror system of healing, which was life-changing for me. It's based on the idea that the parts of your body that don't work well reflect the parts of your life that don't work well, and about which you have tension in your consciousness. The understanding is that tension is stress, and stress causes symptoms. In a distance healing or in-person session, I move up the chakras, returning each one to wholeness using a colour map. During the process, I see images and situations, I hear words or receive impressions that tell me something about what caused the tension in that person's life. The feedback at the end of the session is a really big part of the healing. If you're interested in a chakra healing session, you can contact me at scarletofthefae@gmail.com.
Well, for me, it was something like I saw it from maybe 10, 15 meters, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes difficult to say exactly how tall it would have been, but I guess, yeah, maybe even 2 meters. Yeah, it was maybe like a tallish woman, like
Yeah, that's pretty tall, isn't it? That's yeah, I mean, there's no mistaking that. It's, you know, it's
as a woman she would be a bit outstretched, but
beautiful.
slender.
Yes. Did the shape take in any idea of the form of hair and her dress? Could you make out any kind of the shape of her clothes or her form or anything like that?
No, it didn't go into that
No.
kind of detail.
Mhm.
It felt like a female, yeah, if you want to call it
Form.
fairy, but it didn't went as far as clothing or
No.
facial features. It wasn't like that. The movement, the form, had a silhouette, was like
Yes.
that, but not further than that.
It's painted a really very clear picture of what you saw, which is really fabulous. And so
It's a fond memory.
yeah.
I only talk about it with really friends with whom I feel comfortable, because if I talk to it to other persons, it becomes a tall story, and I don't like to do it like that.
No, exactly. The thing is with these stories, it isn't a spectacle.
No.
It's not something that is there to be picked apart or ridiculed, or these experiences are to be fully respected. And I feel as your story, and also the story of the being for their appearance in that, it all has its honor that must be protected.
Yes. Well, it's of course
Lovely.
it's this thing. I've been there a couple of times, and later on, of course, I had an urge, a feeling of I want to feel that or see that again, but it never happened, because I think because I already had a desire to experience, and the desire makes it impossible to see it.
Yeah.
So,
Why do you think that is?
well, that's the real odd thing with desire. It presupposes that that you are not in contact,
Yes.
in the vicinity of it. It's you make the object of desire something which is not part of you, but which is from you. It's very difficult to, but it's a thing with the lady which you are in love with, but you're not. Sometimes you put it on a pedestal, and then you will never reach her. And well, maybe I also put this experience a bit on a pedestal. So since then, I did not have a similar kind of experience. I had different interesting experiences, but not with these fairy-like creatures. Well, except the one which I could tell you about as well, but which is a bit darker.
Okay, I am open to those experiences too. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that's really interesting what you say, and it sounds like you were there in this place and you totally entered that space with an open heart. It was somewhere that you were familiar with, that perhaps in some ways, when I've visited places that are dear to me, I don't know about you, but it feels like you're being greeted. Sometimes it really does feel like the land rises up to greet you in some way. So then you're there and you're having this meditation and communing with the land, and you are indeed, as you say, becoming part of it, particularly when you're meditating, because you're stepping out of your physical body and becoming part of the place itself, which is a nice thing to do with meditation. And of course, then it feels like the environment is presenting itself to you, or you are able to, because of the changing your own vibration through meditation, you are then able to perceive the physical manifestation of that place.
Yeah, you really know how to put it into words. I did experience the how do you call it, the genius loci, the spirit of places at other areas, but that was not with the idea that I could also see it with my normal senses. So that sometimes you really feel you're enveloped in a bigger spirit, because you walk into that forest and you're part of that area, but that area is also a soul. It's ensouled, and I really like that feeling. It's a way. It's always when I walk into a nature, I can put myself back together again.
Yeah, it's true. It's really wonderful.
Well, she was at the right time, the right moment there for me. It was. I don't know if I took it as a sign at that moment, but for me it was later on a sign of things which were in the bud at that moment, being busy with stories, being busy with making connection to nature. Those things could grow at that place and on other places as well. So yeah, maybe that was a sign of, could be.
That's lovely. So the other experience you
Yes.
had that you mentioned was a bit darker. So how did that happen?
Well, this was actually in the same, I think I had the same experience here in Holland as well one time, but I can't remember that one very easily. So I keep it with the one I had in the community in France. I do have to give a little bit of backdrop here. There was rumors going around with the volunteers. I was volunteering there with the other volunteers that there had been a ghost sighting.
Okay.
And that started with a French boy who was there working as well, who came to the main house, a bit pale, saying, "J'ai vu un fantôme," I had seen a ghost. Well, we thought, well, we can't take this too seriously. But then others started to have a sighting as well, which really, it tickled me, because they didn't say I saw a man or a woman or whatever, or they said, or one said in any case, that he saw a black kind of cube, a black kind of rectangulish figure.
Wow.
And I think I've heard that or read about that before. There was something weird with this way of putting. So I remembered that. But then I think this must have been in the summer when I was there as well. But I'm not 100% sure. I do the recollection of the thing. I was in my bed in that in my sleeping room, sleeping quarter, and when I woke, and there was a figure hovering above me. This figure was grayish, blackish, dark gray. It had a snout. It was like an animal, maybe bat-like, and it was absolutely malevolently glaring, focusing on me, and it was really, really frightening.
God.
But even though, well, you know the twilight between being asleep and being awake, it must have been in such a, but I knew that this was a real experience. I couldn't cast it aside as just a dream. It was not a dream, because I was too awake to see this as a dream. And because I didn't want to experience this, I chose to ignore it and went to sleep on my other side, or went to turned on my other side.
Yeah.
Well, the that helped. It went away. But when I thought about that experience later on, I knew that this was the nightmare, but not in the sense of a bad dream, but in the sense of the Mare, the cauchemar, the Nacht, Mare, the creature which causes the bad dream.
Right. I'm thinking of a sketch also by Goya. For some reason, it's, you know that. Do you know the one I mean?
The weird thing is, Even then, I did like the more darker paintings, and in the Caprichos of Goya, he has not painted, but the other thing. There's a word for it. He sketched this creature, and I cannot but imagine that he knew this from his own experience.
Yeah.
Because it really looked like that, but a bit different as well. It's because my mind wants to put an image in the experience which it has had. So it takes the images which it already has seen and makes its own image from that, the memories of other images. So I maybe have used that image of Goya to create my own image, to make my experience more vivid, more palpable.
Yes.
Well, that's the way how I try to make sense of what I've experienced. Well, now comes the other thing, which makes it maybe less a fairy story, but maybe even a bit of a witchy story. The face of this creature, which was it was a snouty face, but it had a sucking quality. It wants to suck something inside it. It's like energy.
Yes.
Trying to suck your energy away from you and get it in. This creature had a bit the face of the lady who was the wife of the boss, the leader of the community. Yeah, it's really very intensely looking at me with a malevolent way of, a malevolent, intense look.
What were the eyes like? Can you remember, or is it just the sense of them looking at you?
Difficult to say. They were no. Yeah, I know. They are the how can I put this into words? Some people have very open eyes, but otherwise have eyes like pins, like very, very small, very black pupils, very utterly intense gaze, which goes. They are very set upon what they want to achieve.
Yes.
Kind of glare.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
And that was happening, so it was it felt a bit like a kind of attack.
Yeah.
So I did not want to participate in that. So my way of dealing with it was to ignore it
turn
away.
Yeah.
But it was a really very almost magical time in that community with people in a very heightened state of awareness, lots of energy going around, lots of activity, but also different people who were mysteriously ill or very fatigued with no obvious reason.
Yes.
So there was a strange atmosphere going on there.
And did what you saw tally with anyone else's experience? I don't know whether you spoke to anybody about it.
I didn't share this. There were, as I said, there were a couple of people who were very fatigued from without a good cause, but I didn't ask them about if they had any experiences aside from the ghost experiences, which I began this story with.
Yeah. Did you yourself have how is your health afterwards?
It was fine. It was good. I didn't become ill. The only nasty thing was that I do not know if it was before or after this happened, but I had a when you really ache your back, if you make a I climbed into a tree. I didn't do it in the right way. My back said crack,
Oh
and it was
no.
ouch. So I
Yeah.
do really, and that was the second time I had that, and I never hope to have that kind of pain again because it
Oh,
was really very nasty.
like a
Something going
dislocation.
on. Yeah, well, not the bones, but more the
The muscle.
yeah. There was a lot of that going on. People who forced themselves to do more than they could.
Hmm.
So this energetic field, because this like a community are really very intensely working together. This energetic field was pushing the limits. So there was you have a very interesting, beautiful energetic field in the forests around, but the place itself could have been very beautiful, but it wanted it wanted too much. It wanted more than it could. There was it forced itself. So
Yeah.
that was the dark side of it.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I mean, it sounds absolutely blissful to be, in a community and to be
Mm.
self-sufficient. But the trouble is there's always going to be those kind of power plays with some
Yep.
people, not everybody, but all it takes is for some kind of, someone to get on some sort of power trip.
Mm-hmm.
And that just affects everything. And of course that sort of tension causes symptoms. It does make you ill.
Yeah, yeah. So you can see it from a maybe even rational viewpoint of a leader who pushes his people always a bit more to the brink. You can do a little bit more. He was really into stuff like if you put your mind to it, you can achieve everything. Well,
Yeah.
that's a that's an interesting thought, but well, not the body does not always agree.
Yeah.
I didn't dare to confront her or him with this because, well, I was only I was young and not that experienced. They were absolutely authoritative, very sure of themselves, not people whom I could say much about, and especially not with something as intangible as this.
Yeah. And also, I mean, if you think, it's something, if you have experienced it, I would say
Mhm.
that's something that took place in your consciousness. And, it could be that manifestation was a sense of how you felt truly about being in the situation where you were having your energy used for the benefit of someone else's, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
big
of course.
big picture. So that what you saw could in fact be your discomfort, your extreme discomfort with that situation in some sort of manifested form. I guess that's another way to look at it, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's another way. It can both be true. I that one thing is indeed true. I put a lot of energy in that place, and
Mm,
I got a lot of energy from that place and its people as well. So for
mm,
me, it worked, but for a lot of other people, people with less strong, a less strong body, more psychic troubles, came to that place and couldn't cope with it. So for me,
yeah.
it was okay, but for other people's, it was way too much.
Sounds
And
intense. Yeah.
yeah, so you might be right that that this is also a um, subconscious way of telling you in which kind of situation you are.
Yeah.
Well, on the other side, uh, as persons who know a bit more about the layers of our body and the way we
Mm.
be also in an astral body. You go outside yourself and take a look around.
Yeah.
Get energy, people give energy, and sometimes there is a lot of times it's not in balance, and you're always in connection with people, with some a little bit more, with some a little bit less, but with that connection you can take and you can give.
Yes.
And it's not just symbolical.
Yes, I when you first started talking about it, I thought, oh, someone was off astral projecting.
Well, maybe.
Maybe. Really interesting.
Because I don't hear people talk about this a lot. We hear more about the beautiful fairy sightings, but this thing goes on as well.
Yeah, it's really true. And I do hear of really awful situations that people have experienced with fairies.
Well, of course the fairies have been downgraded to children's stories and now try to make harmless. Well, you can't make spirits harmless because they are not they're not human, they're immoral, so they can do and still have their effect on us if we want it or not, and they can still make us happy and they can still make us ill, but we're out of contact, so we do not even know when it happens.
Yeah, I hope we get to a place where we can open the door for some more understanding with that, because we can definitely learn a lot about ourselves and each other in this world and other worlds. It's all there, and we are just part of all of this. And and I think the face that presents itself from those worlds, be it however we perceive it, isn't always necessarily meant to scare us in any way or meant to do anything at all in particular, but we are experiencing it from a certain place in ourselves. And maybe that's sometimes it's a mirror, maybe a reflection of what's going on for us. But there is so much to learn. These experiences are really rich, and as you say, for yourself now you can look back, and with that first experience down by the river, you can see how that made sense in the bigger picture. Yeah,
I really apart from that, it was a grand experience which I will carry with me and want to carry on to our other people as well, but then in the sense of making a connection with the nature which is always surrounding you. Well, that place was really marvelous, but you can feel a bit of it in your own park, in your own street, maybe even, because, well, every tree, every shrub is part of nature, so it's there. So
that's so true. You're absolutely right. Well, thank you for talking to me. It's been really great to have a good chat with you.
We did. We had a nice day.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, and thank you for this beautiful conversation. Time to
Tonight's share provided an array of experiences. Like episode 14, which features a black dog encounter, we can understand these beings or forms as an almost physical manifestation. When I say almost physical, it is that the energy is so dense that it projects an image outwards, and if we are open to perceiving it, say in a meditative state, then we may see it. More often it may be felt, and I would urge listeners to trust their instincts on these matters, but be prepared and engage in some sort of protection ritual beforehand, particularly if you're new to these experiences. The two encounters are very different, and that's an interesting point in terms of ascertaining what's really going on and where these beings exist, or if indeed they exist outside ourselves. I believe they do, and I believe they exist in a parallel otherworld or other worlds, where the vibration is such that we aren't aware of them most of the time, but perhaps further back in human experience, when we were in tune with nature, perhaps then we were able to have some understanding or appreciation of these worlds. On the face of it, we're simply left with questions. It's always tempting to try and categorize the beings we encounter. Yet, fairy experiences can be similar to poltergeist phenomenon, and otherworldly beings who appear and reappear can be more commonly categorized as third-dimensional creatures, cryptids or ghosts, rather than fairy beings. Their qualities and descriptions resemble each other. We cannot, of course, provide answers, but it's through discussion that we open up to certain possibilities and simply see how they sit with the person who has experienced. Often, but not always, the experiencer holds an instinctive sense of what the being was or what it represented. If it appeared to them in their consciousness, then I would argue that it means something to them, even if they never in their lives before even thought of fairies. It's good to note, in fact, that our guest went on to be a successful storyteller of folklore in his native Dutch language, and that this experience does seem to have enriched his life. If you're still pondering on this episode, there's 10 minutes of bonus material you can find at patreon.com/the Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast. In that, my guest describes a little more about life at the commune, and we discussed further possibilities as to what the experience might have been about. We also had a little chat about turning to our own local environments to connect with nature. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please do share it with your friends and make sure you rate the show and subscribe on whichever app you're listening from. That really helps in the magical algorithm universe of which I know very little, but I do know I love making these podcasts and I'd like to keep making them for as long as I can, and with your support I hope to be able to do so. Thank you for joining me and listening with an open heart. Don't forget to write and tell me your thoughts, and always remain curious.